All right, everybody, welcome into the show. This is, either you're listening to this on the podcast or you're watching this on the YouTube channel. So we'll kind of keep it to what it is, but welcome to the show. And tonight's guest is a lady I met in Florida, and she is a tournament angler. She's also just a bass fisherman in general and a fisherman, and this is definitely part of one of our Women on the Water series. This is the second installment here, and I went out and I got us Nicole Jacobs, who is just a heck of a person. I got to talk with her a little bit, got to do some chatting about what I wanted to do with the Women on the Water series and talk about the whole world of bass fishing and the whole world of fishing in general and the outdoors a little bit and why more women not only need to be in here, but should be in here and just aren't right now. So that's kind of what the topic of the show is. Nicole, welcome in. I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me. Said welcome. Yeah, thanks for having
me. That's okay. I let in with the whole thing, and that's basically, what I wanted to talk to you about. We've talked quite a few times now about this topic, and my questions has been, I asked Nikki Jo Hatton when I had her on the show the same question. This is let me preface the question with this. This is a sport, in my opinion, that is so level, so even keeled. Everybody has a shot. This is not something that's an elitist. You do not have to be a 300-pound man to go out there and push another 300-pound man around. You can be whatever, and as long as you're competing against the water, the fish, the weather, the everything else, you have just as much right and just as much effort and ability to go out there and compete and be in this sport. And it doesn't matter which, in my opinion, it doesn't matter woman, man, whatever. This is the levelest playing field we have. And I'd love to hear your opinion. I've heard it. I know what it is, but I want to share it with everybody because I think you have a very, very valid opinion. I think your grasp on this concept is second to none. So it's definitely important to hear a lot of the things you have to say, and I want to share that with everybody. So why don't you give us a little bit of your opinions on this stuff?
I've always, since the beginning, I started doing bass fishing tournaments. I got into bass fishing tournaments after my father died in 2012, and it fueled my whole career. He was the one that taught me about fishing at an early age. And I wanted to honor his life. I never thought it would get to the degree it did in terms of competing at the level I did. And then years later, going on a mission trip with my church. And then 6 months later after that, getting a call from Walmart, doing well in a Bassmaster Open. As a co-angler, I got 14th place. So I've been very lucky and fortunate. I wanted to just make the groundwork first before this. My whole entire reasoning to be in fishing is to bring people to Christ and to bring people to fishing. It's to empower others to follow their passion through faith and vision. So with that being said, if we're talking just tournament bass fishing, in terms of, yes, I've always said from the beginning of my career, fish don't discriminate. And if we're just talking about bass fishing in general as a competitive sport, it's just you against the fish. But the problem is that fish don't discriminate, but people do. So to say that women and men have equal opportunity, we do have an equal opportunity, but it's not the same. So you fishing in a tournament versus one woman or two women in a tournament fishing against 500 guys, it's not the same for us. So I'm not going to sit here and turn a blind eye and pretend and just comply with the industry and say it is. It's just not. So I feel as a woman, we have a duty and responsibility to be welcome mats in the industry, not doormats. Because a lot of it, especially with the women competing in the bass fishing world, I feel there's a scarcity complex that only one woman can succeed, only one woman can make the elites or try, and that's justified. It's because we've had this concept, we're in a male-dominated sport. To me, this is a very privileged sport. This is a sport that has predominantly catered to white men. So we have to just have these courageous conversations and start talking about it. So where do you want to go?
For me, I'm an open book here. I'm writing this thing. I am telling this story. I am trying to bring this to light. I have no place to start with other than the fact
Well,
that
I love to share.
I am definitely someone who believes that when you have the opportunity that I believe we have in this sport to be one of the most leaders in making sure that um, men of color, women in general have a right to come out and compete and are not discriminated against. This is a heck of a sport for it. We stand up at every event, almost everywhere, whether it's a club, whether it's this, that, or the other, it doesn't matter. There's a national anthem played.
Mhm.
Men and women stand up, they put their hand over their heart and they say, I'm an American and I'm going to stand for this flag and I'm going to stand for this anthem.
Yep,
But at the same time, there is some hypocrisy to that in the
there is.
sense that they will stand for that flag and they will say, hey, I don't believe in what those people are doing in the NFL. I don't believe what they're doing in there. Okay, that's fine. And everybody's, I have no problem with anybody else's opinion whatsoever. But don't say that and then be a part of a sport
Mhm.
that is so negative towards other, whether it be genders or race. It's not, I'm not saying that this sport is negative. I'm saying that it is not inclusive and not from any other stance in the fact that it's just not happening.
Ab-
And I put some of that on the women. They're just not out there doing it also. And I put that on men of color. I'm not men or women of color. I'm not saying they're not doing it, or I'm not saying that they're not being allowed to do it. They're not doing it. So
Yep.
are we, do you feel like we're holding them back? Or do you feel like we are just, it's a good old boys club and only certain people are let in?
It is a good old boys club. It's been a good old boys club. Predominantly fishing has always been a good old boys club. It's a male dominated sport. So with that being said, for the last decade, things haven't changed. When we look at statistics, even this year alone, there's I think it was 18.7 million women anglers. Women make up 38% of the industry, according to Take Me Fishing. And this is what I'm talking about, my women making wave stuff. But they're dropping out at alarming rates. They're not competing. They're dropping out ahead of time. It's because they literally don't see themselves in the sport or have a will or want. Two things. Yeah, it is on us. It's on us women, and it's on the industry. A lot of the industry has catered marketing plans, marketing teams. If you look at ads, we were challenged at ICAST how many actual companies had legit authentic anglers in their ads, and it was less than 10 than all those companies. What I say about that, it's a very delicate line because I think a lot of companies will just pick a woman of anyone to just fill a quota. And I feel that companies use women as fashion accessories rather than actual legit anglers. And that's what there's been. So this is why there's so much confusion and like people are sensitive about talking about women in fishing. It's like, but we need to have these courageous conversations because we're not thinking outside of the box. We've been thinking like, this is how it has to be. This is how it's always been. That's just not it. So us women are challenging that, especially me, just to encourage people to think differently. Even though I agree with you, like fish don't discriminate, but we're talking about just competing. But it is different for us. So how do we retain those anglers? How do we make it more open? And I really feel the women making wave stuff. This isn't just for competitive fishing. This is fishing as a whole. It's about empowering each other, even if we have difference in opinions, and moving in the right direction together. Women are hands down the biggest setback for other women in the industry. Whether we are called, and people don't want to have these conversations because then we're immediately labeled as it's controversy or it's chaos or it's drama. It's just not true. This is the double standard in the industry. Women are held to a double standard. You and I compete in a tournament. I say I beat you, and and say it's always something. Oh, she's just a co-angler, or she just got that sponsor because she's just a pretty face. Or when I got the Walmart deal, it was, oh, she's related to the Jacobs, Erwin Jacobs, and my nest name's Jacobs. That's why it's always the undermining our efforts and ability. We have to walk on eggshells. We are held under a microscope in the industry. So it's not the same at all. I've had things happen to me, which it makes me stronger. Like personally, I love to compete against guys. So it makes me stronger, and I'm happy with that. Some people just don't want to do it because there's a lot of different things going on that people are not talking about. Women have been harassed at tournaments. Women have been sexualized. I've had a female angler. I'm going to just say this right now because she said I could share this at a tournament. I'm not going to say what circuit, legit first time doing this as a co-angler. Her boater friends put a sex toy in her live well. Legit. And the industry didn't do shit. Excuse me, but they didn't.
Right.
They didn't do anything about it. Paying for her entries? No, that guy should have been DQ'd. Do you think like that's going to happen? Like, do I need to put tampons in guys' live wells to make it like change? What is it going to take? Like, so it's just building awareness and having these conversations. You asked me, why hasn't someone like made it to the elites? We have not seen the progression of women retention in the industry for that to happen. There's just not, like, now that there's college leagues and things like that, I think when 10 years we'll see that. We have not done a good job in the bass fishing world. It's not about special treatment. It's about acknowledging the fact and being welcoming and having these conversations and not gaslighting, not diminishing their voice, not saying, well, she's just controversial, she's just a feminist. That these are all things I've been called. The most recent one was on the Colin Kaepernick of bass fishing, which is just funny to me because I'm just have a different view, and I'm choosing just to raise my voice and be mindful and thoughtful. And I think the bass fishing world in general has had a very closed-minded approach, and maybe this is too progressive for people.
Well, let me stop you real quick because I want to make 2 points on this. That one, Colin Kaepernick's stuff has nothing to do with this. He is his opinions were completely taken out of context and still are to this day.
Yep.
And I don't side with him in any way, shape, or form. 2, when you say that, you know, people have called you a feminist, people have said this about the other, I think what a lot of people will say, because I've said this, I think one of the things is that yes, there are women out there competing. I don't know how many of them you know, you still have to qualify, you still have to do these things, you still have to make it up there
if that's your goal.
Right.
That's not my goal right now. Like, I don't care. Like, I know why God put me in the industry. So why am I going to be held to that standard if I don't really, you know what I'm saying? For so long, women have been told we have to fit this mold. This is an industry for everybody.
Right.
That's what my shirt says. The water's open to everybody. We don't have to follow the footsteps of men. We don't.
No, you don't. We talked about that a little earlier. You know, we talked about maybe there should be a women's league, maybe there shouldn't be. You're on one side of that fence and I'm on the other, but for totally different reasons. I don't believe, I would rather see women step up and maybe make some adjustments in the rules to where if they don't feel comfortable with fishing in a man in a boat, they can have their, you know, a woman be drawn. They can bring somebody with them. They can, you know, whatever. When you hear about the, you know, it's always sad to hear the sexual harassment goes on in this day and age. I mean, we are in a ridiculous day and age where sexual harassment can happen nowhere because it's out there, but we still allow things like that to happen in you know, groups like this, and it's
like the women are blamed, like, or
right.
It's always
and other women blame them. You know, that can be such a big part of it. I think you've said, like, you know, you mentioned that it's like, oh well, she deserved it because she shouldn't have been out there anyways, from other women, and that's a hard deal to look at.
Right. It's a fragility, scarcity complex in the industry. That's what it is. And that's why women, I love this Women Making Waves campaign. Again, this goes beyond the sport of bass fishing competitively. It's about, like, I love the JFK quote, "A rising tide lifts all boats," because when we vocalize our opinions together, we can make change. And that's what's happening. People are noticing. In terms of competitive bass fishing, I don't know the real answer. I do think there's a place for women, women's leagues. There's obviously in other sports, basketball. Personally, I was raised by my father that said, you're going to go play the boys. That's how you get good at sports. So I'd go to local gyms and play basketball. I can truly tell you, like, I am a better competitor because of it. I'm not saying I wouldn't be a better competitor to play against all women, but I personally like to compete against them. They make me better, and I challenge myself to do that. Again,
well, that's an interesting statement, that you just made, because how do you say, you're told, oh, I need to go compete with the guys to become better. And I know you said the same thing, oh, well, I could compete against the girls and be better, but is there something to that? Is there something that says men compete better at bass fishing than women? Because I personally don't believe that that's a true statement. I believe that women out there have every ability to be you can go out any day of the week in a boat, blah, 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 whoop me if you need to. That's if you want to, you get you get the boat, you take the boat, you go out, you outfish me. That can happen. I'm not saying I'm better at it than you are, or you're better. If you put the time in, you have the skill, you can beat me. And that's not a problem. I think the problem lies myself with the egos of the guys who get beat by a girl. And that's such a problem in this sport. It is. It's I don't think this becomes a problem with the sport so much as it becomes a problem with the egos in the sport.
I think
people have to realize that a competitor is a competitor, male, female, black, white, yet whatever. A competitor is a competitor. And if that competitor beats you on that day, tip your hat, say thank you. I'll learn from what the ass whooping you just handed me, and go on. But again, but it doesn't happen that way.
It's just not, and people like, it's never going to change. It can with awareness.
100% can change.
Education, how you're raised and how you treat people. I mean, I've been cut off in tournaments. I've been had guys blow me, totally done that stuff. And I know there's several women that compete in the bass fishing world that have been treated poorly as well by male competitors. But for every 5 bad competitors, there's 10 good ones. So, so getting to the sport of bass fishing, like I said, yeah, I do have the stance that fish don't discriminate, but the problem is people do, and that we have just a different game that we have to play when we're on the water. It's different for me to go on the water and be one of the only women and be with 500 dudes and vice versa. A lot of us, I told you, get this undermining ability. Say I got fourth place in my first tournament this year as well, she's just a co-angler. No big deal. It's this fragile complex, and about egos, you're absolutely right that it's not good enough. Like nothing's ever good enough for our attempts in trying. But on the flip side of that, there's also been women that have done this the wrong way. Like there's women who will say that pose in bikinis or pose, and it brings a totally different complexity to the sport of fishing, because these women are paid for these ads. They have several 100,000 followers on social media, and a lot of these companies will decide, like, there's confusion. I can understand there's really a lot of confusion for the marketing companies, for the sponsored companies, these companies trying, who do we take seriously, what do we take seriously? But women are so harsh in judging. It's like at the end of the day, we all have our individual goals. Again, mine comes down to bringing people to Christ, bringing people to the sport of fishing. I compete because I absolutely love to compete. So if we want to see more growth, we need to appreciate women for their individuality and their voice. And we need to have men stop their little boy stuff and ego and just really check themselves and say, how am I being inviting in the sport?
Right. Well, and that's a great point. I have friends who are women who fish, and I believe that some of them have more passion in their little finger than a lot of the guys that I've seen that go out to do this. There are so many, and I'm not saying the top anglers in the country, because I'll tell you what, I fish behind the guy who owns this company, Bass Angler Magazine, Mark Lassane, and I'll tell you right here, right now, he's 62 years old, and the guy catches a 6-pounder and dances around like he's a freaking 12-year-old schoolgirl. Because let me tell you, the guy freaking loves this industry. He loves this sport.
I fished with him.
Yeah, he's just a guy that does what it does, and you got to fish with him, you and your friend, and
caught the biggest fish.
Huh?
I caught the biggest fish of the day.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm pretty sure that Mark didn't take it to heart.
He actually took pictures for us, and
it's again, and that's the way. Right. But there are so many, and I'm not gonna, and I'm not gonna name names on this but I will tell you, the guy that I fished with and the guy that took you guys out in his boat, they were not allowed to fish with you guys without somebody else there. Okay. And in my opinion, that is totally, it's just
that's
garbage.
Exactly we're not, okay. So to relation to that, I fished with the guy that's in the and then we had to have another guy in the boat because actually we're not even told if they told the girlfriend, but like it would be wrong to fish with a guy. Personally, I've always gone about it when I fished on tour. So if I'm going to practice with somebody, I just how I was raised is to ask the wife permission, ask the girlfriend permission, because I personally feel when you build that standpoint with people, like you can build, that's just how I was raised. So I would want to treat people like that. With that being said, I was in a tournament on tour and my boat draw got switched because one of the wives, the angler, this is where it's wrong. This is where the sexism comes into play. This is where it's not the same for us women. The company switched my draw because the wife complained so bad that the guy couldn't fish it. That's wrong. That's just wrong. So
that's definitely an insecurity on her part. But that's where it came from. But again, that's where it came from. It came from her. The company, you can't fault the company for that because they can't put themselves in a liability situation like that. If a wife's having problems, I know you'll disagree. And I fully understand why you would disagree. But
that's not making it equal. You're not making it equal. You're making special adjustments, seeing that we have special treatment. Well, you're treating the male anglers with special treatment.
Right.
Why should discriminated just because the wives know that there could be a potential that women are going to fish in their boat? That's the name of the game. And women, especially these wives, some of these wives are so amazing and inviting.
Let me take this right to super controversial then. If this is let's take it to a place where somebody is you got an issue. Okay, well, you know what? I don't want my son, let's say he's fishing as the pro, and some dad, mom, whatever steps up and says, yeah, I don't want my son fishing with that black guy. I don't want my husband, I don't want my whatever.
You know what I say?
Let's take that away from a woman.
I say then you don't have to compete.
Right. Exactly.
And we have catered to the white male agenda in this sport for far too long. And that's what I'm saying. It's not just about women, it's about people of color. We've actually had, according to Take Me Fishing, there was like a 20% increase in African American culture. There was that fished last year. Again, this comes down to the sport of bass fishing being a privileged sport. This still caters to this sport. You have these $80,000 boats and all these entry fees. It is still a privileged sport. We're not catering to everybody. It's not. So not just women, we're not catering to the people of color. I'd like to see more people of color, but it's like, what is the answer? It's education.
Yes. Well, there's always been, and you can say this, you look at the NBA and you see there's a couple, black men that play in that sport, and other youth come up and they see that and they go, wow, I want to aspire to be that. I see what he's made, I see what he's got, I see where he's at. And that comes down to this sport the same way. Jackie Robinson played in baseball for the first time, and other black men at that point looked up and said, I can be there too. When I look at bass fishing, I look out there and I see very few Ishman Rose out there, Brian Latimer's out there, Mark Daniels Jr.'s out there. But now I look around and I look for big names of women, and I see Pam Martin Wells. I see, you see where I'm going with that. It's just like, you just don't see. So where is it that these younger ladies that are coming out, who are they looking up to? Who are they saying? Well, the problem is like you said, what they're seeing is they're seeing that lady who maybe didn't do anything, but she got a sponsorship because she's beautiful in a bikini, or she is a pretty face and she stands up there and sells something. That's not a role model, because her passion isn't in the sport. It may be, she may have the passion for the outdoor world or for the sport, but she's not putting her name out there and saying, I'm working hard, I'm sleeping on the side of the bank so that I can be in touch with the water, like Rick Clunn used to do.
I'm gonna challenge you, because I'm not saying I support the women bikinis. Me as a person would never do that, but there is a place for everybody in the sport, and there's a lot of people in Florida that fish in bikinis, and I have to be mindful of what I say, because there is a culture down there that some do. Do I agree with it? No, I don't, because
I'm not taking, that's not, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm not talking about I'm not talking about the women who are, if I could have been in Florida in a bikini, trust me, I would have been. It was very hot. But,
the sex to sell.
right. It's the sex to sell thing that you look at and you say, and I have, like I said, I have friends who are in this industry and are new to it and are out there on the water. And I go, don't fall for that.
Yeah.
You have a passion for this sport. You have a passion for this industry.
Yeah.
Let that shine through. Let that be your driving force. Let them see that that's what you're actually out here for, is that you love this sport so much that you're willing to do what it takes to get ahead, which means you're going to be out there practicing. You're going to be out there at dawn. You're going to be out there till dark. You're going to put the work in. And I see women out there now doing that. And I just don't, what I don't want to see is a step backwards or a step to the side, or them being bulldozed, or if I ever saw, someone out there sexually harassing a woman, I would definitely step up and I'd make sure something happened, whether they liked it or not.
Yeah.
I don't think that's proper in any place or anywhere.
Right. And I have a lot of support. Like, I had an altercation, not something I wanted to be involved in, but it was at the Bassmaster Open on the James River. An angler had said something to a boater, had seen me in practice with a friend of mine that was a guide there as a co-angler. I've never fished. I never fished a title before. I wanted to learn from somebody that offered to take me. So I only had 2 days to practice on the weekend before actual practice, because I'm in grad school too, getting my master's. And the guy saw me and then said something in the tournament, because we were there first in the Bassmaster rules. My guy that I fished with said, this is a community hole. If you need to come here, like, take your guy here. If he has no fish, I want you to do well. So that's exactly what we did. We started there because my guy did not have, he listened to me. He valued my opinion. And this other guy that was a boater came in and cut us off, and was literally about 100, not even 100 feet, maybe 50 feet from our boat, and cutting us off on the bank. And he cut enough, and his co-angler had already sat down and knew he was in the wrong. And then he had said something to my boater, and then let's just say he said something to me very not appropriate for a woman. And I didn't handle it well at first, but we did have to DQ him. There's a lot of this going on too, not just directed at me, but in the industry as a whole. Why I was bringing that up is, like, there just needs the behavior of anglers. Like, we're not a one size fit all. Like, we all have to be mindful of that. But like with women, like, there are things that are said, and it does happen.
Right. And that's unfortunate. And I hope in the future it goes away. I really do. I think that this is, like I said, I just believe this is such a great sport. I have a big passion for it. And I think that everybody belongs in it. I think everybody that wants to be in this needs to be in there, and there shouldn't be any barriers.
Don't have to follow the elite. We don't have to do that if we don't want to.
No, absolutely, 100%.
Like I said, my goals in fishing, if people want to work with me, and I'm at a point in my life where people understand that I'm Christ-centered. I want to work with Christ-centered companies. I want to work with people that truly understand equity. And when I talk about equity, it's about fairness, and equality is about sameness. I'm educated. I have a degree in kinesiology, but I'm getting my master's in education right now. And we are trained on equity. So for me, this, over the past 5 years, being trained on this stuff has just kind of opened my eyes to different perspectives. And that's where I formed my view. And especially after last year, living in Minneapolis, what had happened with George Floyd, I'm sorry, but it really opened my eyes to the realities and inequities in fishing and in our world. And what bothered me the most about that is, this is why I call it a white fragile sport, and in a privileged sport, is because a lot of fishing companies or people didn't even acknowledge this uproar that had happened in our entire world, and instead would post fishing pictures and this and that. One side of that is, oh, they want to get political. This is a big deal. This is a super big deal. I couldn't turn a blind eye and not say anything. So I went down there myself, saw things from my own eyes, posted about the charity work we did and stuff like that. But to not acknowledge it is I feel inappropriate. And I feel not everybody needs to have these opinions. But again, that comes down to, it's always been this certain way. And now that people are challenging it, they don't like that.
Of course, nobody, that's, I said that before, it's a cliche, I know, to say that no one likes change. but it's a reality. Everybody fights change, and whether it's good change or bad change. I mean, I think in this country, this world, we live in a country right now, that there's been a ton of changes in the years that I've been alive. There's been a ton of changes. um I wish I could say that racism is dead. It's not. I mean, there still exists to an extent. Is it less? Absolutely, 100%. We don't have nearly the rules, the laws, the things that we used to have. Is it getting better? I believe so. I believe there's a lot of changes that have happened for the positive. I look at you can pick up a TV anytime and look at things, and you can't say that there's not changes going on in this world, because RuPaul has a TV show, so that wouldn't have happened 40 years ago. Okay. There are so many things that are positive that we start to lose the fact that there are positives. And when something as big as George Floyd's happens, whether you look at it and say this guy was right, this guy was wrong, that guy was, he shouldn't have done this, he shouldn't have done that, you're right. Your opinions are always valid. Everybody's opinions are valid. I give everybody their opinions. I don't care which side you're on with that. Your opinions are valid. So love your opinions, but understand that someone's life was taken by someone else. And it just happened to be at a time when the country was super divided. To not acknowledge the extent of it. What is
an election year? Yeah.
Yep. It was bad timing for a lot of stuff, but it was also great timing in the sense that some things have actually, some better things will come from it. Unfortunately, that it has to go to that extent. But no, and like I said, I think that when things like that happen, I like to say, yes, we can turn to our sport and say, we can bring people together, because I don't care who you are, where you're from, or anything else. If you walk up to me, I don't care if you're tattooed gang guy of any color, and you walk up and you're like, dude, how the fish biting? You and I just became friends, and we're going to talk some fishing.
And that's non-competing fishing. Like I said, the water's open to everyone. That's the taking fishing. And it's encouraging everyone that it is. But the reality is that it has been a predominantly white male sport. According to Take Me Fishing now, if you want retention, single moms are the ones taking their kids fishing. So we just don't have education out there. There's so many educational videos that are just redundant about how to bass fish or how to tie a Texas rig from elite anglers. We need middlemen, people like myself or others that are hold themselves to a high standard. And I'm an avid angler, but are more into that. My education comes to women, comes from new angler retention, and it's reaching family anglers. So we just have to put out the education, and we're missing. And 80% of the industry obviously is, in tournament world is this, and they're catering to that 80%, but we're not retaining the rest of them. And that's where the education comes in.
Well, and to your point with that is that with retention of those other anglers, you also get a longevity to your the outdoor world. We're losing the outdoor world. It's going away in some ways more than others. I mean, hunting is absolutely being, bombarded more than this, obviously, than fishing. But but one of the things that I really do see a lot is there are a lot of women out there, especially, that I'm seeing in the woods now. I'm seeing on the water more. I'm seeing them taking control and saying, you know what, I love being in this industry. Some of them got introduced by their husbands. Some of them got introduced by their dads. Some of them got introduced by just friends. And I look at it and I say, there's been for so many years, the concept of, raising a tomboy was not such a good thing. It's my daughter needs to play with dolls, needs to play with dolls and needs to play with this and that and the other. And I think that's garbage. I don't have any daughters. I don't have anything like that. But, it's, had I had a daughter, 100%, she would have been standing at the back of the boat fishing also. It's just
my dad raised us right too. My dad was like, you're gonna fish, you're gonna bait your hook and take your fish off, or you're not fishing. So I guess I was pushed always that way. And again, he always pushed me to excel in sports. So literally he dropped me off at the basketball in New Brighton, and I would literally play the boys to get better because I had that will and want. And again, anyone can have the will or want. There's women out there trying to compete for the elites. I would just encourage them that we don't need just one person. It can be anybody. We can have
Sure.
several women competing. And what I see in the bass industry is the scarcity complex. So are they really for women in the sport, or are they for themselves? And I feel a lot of women are competing for that title to just be
Right.
that woman that compete, rather than actually truly loving it and wanting to be there. Like, I'm not going to fish opens because I'm not looking for elites right now. That's not going to work for me as
Right.
a single mom, and that's not my goal in fishing. My goal, again, is to bring people to Christ in fishing. I
Right.
compete because I love to compete. I
Right.
love bettering myself. I'm an athlete. I like to compete. So that's my goals. Like, yeah, eventually, if I had time when my son's older, maybe I
But
will compete in the
right.
open. But I don't
But I
have to.
but I think one of the things you're saying in that statement is that these women who have maybe taken that extra step, you know, don't don't turn around and put a fence up. Turn around and put a hand down.
What
Grab
I'm
somebody else and say,
saying,
you know what?
welcome versus a
Come on.
doormat.
Yeah, here. Let me. You know what? I was able to push this door open. Why don't you come through the door with me? And then
Exactly.
turn around and say, you know what? Why don't we open the next door together?
Here's the
I think
problem.
that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, and I think it's a maturity level thing too, and how you're raised. But we can have different set of opinions and not become disagreeable. But I've seen so much bull crap from women in the industry and myself, and I haven't handled things well. I'm going to be
Mhm.
honest. Like, I have gotten into conversations on social media with women that had a difference in opinion, and it turned into, oh well, she's badgering her career or this and that. It's just not okay. Like, and then I realized I should have never done that at social media. So I have made mistakes, but that doesn't mean I'm not challenging them in their career, putting their career down. We have this
Right.
like fragility as women too, like, oh,
Hmm.
we're putting each other down, and then we get this complex again. And I can get why when men would challenge, like, oh, they're dramatic or this and that. That's not fair. We're just having conversations. Our conversations are different.
Right.
So when I say there's a double standard in the industry, there is. Women are held to a double standard. I could say something on social media and lose a sponsor, but if a elite guy does that or acts inappropriate, there's several elite guys I know that have done things that
Hmm.
they don't lose sponsors for, you
They may
know?
get talked to, but they won't lose that
Again,
sponsorship.
that's the double standard.
Right.
So we talk about wanting fishing to be this equal playing ground, but it's not, because we are held to a different standard, period.
Mhm. Do you think that's because you're women or just because it's different? Because it's
No,
something
because we're
new coming
women.
in the sport.
It's because we're women. It is absolutely because we're women. Again,
Okay.
and this comes down to ego.
Well,
I think ego, and that comes down to, your background and whatnot. Again, I've been successful and I failed miserably on the water.
mhm,
Again, oh, it was just, she's just a co-angler, or she just got that sponsor because she's ethnic and she's a pretty face. It's the minimization of
mhm,
women and marginalization of women that make it
right.
worse. That's why we're not seeing progression. We absolutely will see progression if we continue to have courageous conversations and not calling women dramatic, not calling us contrary, not saying I'm whining, because I'm actually talking about this from an educated standpoint, rather
Right.
than, that doesn't make my opinion more valuable than someone else's who doesn't.
Mhm.
It just makes it there. Does that make sense?
No, you have opinions. Like I said, everybody's entitled to their opinions, and I'm glad. Like I said, I came after your opinion. I wanted it because I think it's valid. I think you have every right. You've seen a lot of things. You've been a lot of places. There are other ladies that and women that I'm going to talk to, and some of them are going to have very different opinions than yours, and some of them are going to have agreeable opinions, and some are going to be in the middle. Some are going to be to the far, whatever it is. I just think that this conversation needs to start somewhere. I have a format. I'm going to start it.
Here's my problem is
Mhm.
when women have this complex, their views and their opinion takes more weight than the someone else's opinion. Obviously, this Woman Making Waves campaign is bigger than a lot of people can understand. If
Mhm.
you don't agree with it, that's okay. That's your choice. But at the end of the day, we feel, there's women that feel like when we rise together and we support and encourage each other, better things happen for women.
Well, of course it does. I mean, that's how everything works. I mean, like I said, take it back to Jackie Robinson. I mean, he may have been the first, but he didn't turn around and shut the door. He didn't
Right.
turn around and say, no, that's it. It's me. It's just
All
me.
I would say is we have to do better. I have not seen it to this day, at least the women that I know. I can still respect all these women and have a difference in opinion, but I see it getting to a point where people don't respect each other and take it as a total personal shot when it's not. It's just a
Yeah.
different opinion. And
Yeah, but that's our
women,
culture right now.
and that's women
Yeah.
taking things too personally, myself included.
Mhm.
I'm passionate that we need to rise together. We do. We have to support each other, even if we don't have agree. And
Right.
then there's women out there that say you don't have to play, don't about women and men, and just show up and don't say anything and do that. To me, that's just conformity. We are different, so why shouldn't we be proud to be women and female anglers?
Well, here's a question I've had for this. Let's say you decided that, yeah, you're going to fish the elites, and you go out and you qualify to do it. And don't get me wrong, I still take nothing away from the fact that whether a woman wants to be there or doesn't want to be there, there is no, in my opinion, there is no way that she makes it because she's a woman, or because she, or a guy makes it because he's black, or because name the freaking, there is no reason. You either qualify or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
In baseball, you can either hit a curveball or you can't. In fishing, you can either compete and win or you can't. Now, I say that, but do you think that if you did make that you would be greeted with open arms from those professionals up there? And that's, I mean, and I'm talking about the top guys.
So, I want to kind of bring up the past. Like, obviously, there's been two women that have made the Bassmaster Classic. They were up women's leagues, and a lot of people are unhappy about that. But I would challenge people and say that's not their fault at the time. Like, that's nope. And there's still college leagues. There's TBF. So if you want equity for elite anglers, I truly feel you have to eliminate all of it, not just the women's leagues. They didn't eliminate women's leagues because it's just women. They eliminated it because of the participation. So I guess what you're saying is, if I made the elites, I know that these women anglers made that and weren't treated with the respect. And one of them actually beat half the field. Right. In the actual Bassmaster Classic, beat half the elite guys. She finished in top 20 and was still treated poorly. I know for a fact, because I talked to the person that gave that someone complained and said that her husband was fishing for her when her husband doesn't even fish, and she had to take a lie detector test. All this narrative. Again, this is when women are held to a different standard and treated not equally. So we want equity and equality, and we say, oh, it's the same. It's not the same. Yeah, fish don't discriminate, but people do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So if I made the elites, do I feel like I'd have a lot more respect or whatnot? I look at it this way, like if that was my goal, yeah, of course, whoever makes the elites as a female at the male ranking will have a genuine respect. But are we catering to that? It doesn't really matter to me. Like again, my value is not in making the elites. My value is not in trophies. My value comes down to my relationship.
Right. No, and I fully understand that. The reason I'm asking that specific question is this: when, let's say, a guy, and this is a random, Justin Lucas, young kid coming up, let's name Michael Bennett, Mark Daniels Jr. When these guys started coming up, they're young guns coming in. Mm-hmm. One of the things they really look for is that, how do you say, what's the best word for it? I guess the confirmation that, hey, I made it. I'm here. I have fished all the events that I needed to fish. I qualified for it. Yeah. I go out, I win an event. I've done everything I can possibly do. I get here. And if they were to go up onto that stage and finish 10th, do you think that someone up there would be like, dude, that kid was like, his dad was fishing for him. He was out there pre-fish. No. This was going on. That was going on. No, they wouldn't. That happens, right?
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Do you feel like if it was the same, if the roles reversed, and here's a young lady who's out there busting her tail, and she's competing and she's competed and she's won and she's done everything she needed to do to compete and she made it, do you think she would get up there and the guys would be like, Don't mess with her. She's a badass. She's done this. She's gone through everything we had to go through, and she had to do it with people laughing in her face and pushing at her.
Yeah.
Do you think that she get the same respect?
I
That's
think
the question that's there.
I think so I appreciate that question. I think it's still a man's world. I think half the field would be appreciative and like grateful that this happened, but again, there's still fragile egos out there that would not accept it, and that's just how it is. Because if you look at progression of sports, for example, I don't know her name. I just watched a video on a girl that's actually qualified and plays with the boys, does really well in the little leagues, made the little league championship,
Right.
one of the best catchers you've seen of all time. If you look at comments, this was posted on a page and it showed the sexism in the sport. They were belittling her, grown ass men belittling this young girl. Oh, I could throw that at that yard. Oh, she won't make it to the big, she won't make it past this, or this, and that. Again, it was that marginalization and that minimization of her efforts, even though she made it fair and square. So the question is, what is it going to take to have these conversations and switch from this cultural perspective that men are dominant than women, I guess. And when you go look back, I like to talk about history and facts. The fact of the matter is, early on, 100 years ago or more, women were the Betty homemakers. We were made to be in the kitchen and breed and have kids. It was true statement that I've learned from women in sports history is that women were not allowed to compete in like the 20s and early 1900s in sports because and go to college because they had fears. Doctors told them that their uteruses would atrophy. So again, it's been this complete, I think, progression in terms of it started like this. Men are still superior to women. So what is it going to take? I don't know. I think it's education and us just talking about it.
Well, no, it makes sense to me. I'm the one doing the interview. I'm opening this door up. I know that I won't be super popular because of this.
I know that question.
I believe that is the answer to the question. There is just it is openness, it is honesty, it is people finally getting out of their own damn way and looking at somebody and acknowledging them for not who they are, not gender wise, not color wise, or anything else, and saying good job on but good job on putting in the work, the effort. You can't get anywhere unless you put the work in and the effort. I mean, I don't care how beautiful of a woman you are not going to win the Bassmasters Classic on that. It's not going to happen. That's not, you are not going to do it if you put out the effort.
Competitive bass fishing is about time on the water and overcoming your own obstacles, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend I don't have more obstacles than men. Like we do. We have different things we deal with.
I fully believe right now you're right. I mean, it's just there. There's always going to be leaps and there's always going to be hurdles. There's always going to be barriers. There's always going to be things for the first that are doing it, for the people until it becomes a norm. And I really do believe when we talked about the ladies coming up in college, the ladies coming up in the high school, there are so many young ladies coming up that are just out there doing it. I will sit right here and tell you flat out right now, I have got my butt handed to me by high school girls in tournaments because they can fish. I mean, and I'm not trying to take anything away from it. It's like, I stand back and I'm just like, there it is, man. You're out there doing the work.
Yep. And here's the thing again, and it's being the athlete that you want to be. You don't have to cater to the thing. And for me, I believe everyone has their own version of success. Like I told you, I could practice 2 days hard on the water or 3 days prior. And then the day before, no matter what, I have to sleep. I have chronic migraines. Like I gotta sleep. Like that's my equation for success. Just because Gerald Swindle or someone else, like whatever, goes and practices for 2 weeks prior doesn't mean they're not going to outfish me or what. However, it is proven that the more time on the water that it's just math. The more time you put in, the better you're going to do.
It's been said on this show. It's been said on other things that, Jacob Wheeler right now is one of the best fishermen in the world. And it was flat out, Fred Rombana said it. He said, that guy will outwork you. every day of the week. He will outwork you. Well, there used to be a guy that was said by all the time. Rick Clunn was another guy. He will outwork you. He's still, I mean, at what, 190 or whatever he is now. Sorry, Rick, I love you. But that, that's the guy will still outwork you. He just will. He's put barriers up for himself too.
No,
but
I 100%.
right. So if you're telling me, if you're,
but there are. Go ahead. Sorry, I keep
yeah,
talking over you.
if you're that's all right. If you're telling me that there's a woman that's going to go out there and she's going to be on that water and she's going to put sun up to sundown and she's going to be charting, she's going to be looking at water, she's going to be finding where the grass patches are, she's going to be doing everything she can, and she goes out and she wins and she takes first, she takes second, she takes third, she's constantly cashing checks, she's she Jordan Lee's it, she comes out of nowhere and just starts doing this. I'm all for it. I think it's 100%. I still believe that she has to qualify and do that work, and I still have to see where she's coming from, because she's needs to do it, but it has to happen.
And that's about competitive bass fishing. Again, I truly feel all women have a place here in the sport. It's not just competing bass fishing tournaments. But yeah, you're right. I mean, and the thing is, it's like, again, what we're dealing with, though, there are women out there competing on the opens that are actually putting in the time, and then there's some that just aren't performing, and that comes down to, again, it's a mind game. We know this is 80% mental. We can put all the time in on the water, but why do I get in my own head or what like that? Women can be their own barriers, but there are things that we deal with. We're still minimized for our efforts. I'm gonna say right now, even if I was out there all the time, it was, oh, she got information from a guide, or she fished with a guy friend, or this and that. Again, these are the narratives that are truly going on, and that's something we need to be aware of. Like, that's why I'm speaking up.
Right.
It doesn't make me want to put in the time and effort if I want to make.
No, and it's funny you say, oh, she got information from a friend. Well, you know how many guys I know that pre-fish on the phone? Yeah. I mean, there's so many people out there.
I know several elites that actually had fished with this guy I fished with at James River, called them before the tournament, and they actually won based on that information. But I got called up because I fished with him as a co, because I wanted to learn the water, and he was referred to me by an angler friend I knew nothing about. As a co, it's not my job to find fishing spots. Like, it's I want to just do the best with the conditions.
Right.
Why did I get called out on that?
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I wish I knew, because I can tell you right now, I have a tournament coming up and guys are fishing with guides. It's
women
like,
are held to a different Women are held to a different standard, period. I don't care what you say. I could say something on social media. I'll get a talking to, because we are under a microscope constantly, because we always are feeling we have to prove ourselves. But if some male elite, for example, if I missed a tournament due to a medical condition, I had a sponsor pretty much reprimand me and lower my stuff, because I was in the hospital. I made the first BFL. I was qualifying as a boater. I made it with a crankbait in my head, actually, a co-angler have the crankbait, and I was like, I'm making this. This is how I knew I have what it takes to compete against these guys, because I could switch it around. I had an actual crankbait in my head, and I still made the regional. I couldn't go to regional because I unfortunately had a heart thing that put me in the hospital for 3 days. So I missed regional. I had a sponsor come back and say, you're lowering your fishing expectations. Like, that's really unfortunate. But if this were to happen to an elite guy, would that happen? I don't think so.
Probably not.
I'm just saying. I'm trying. I don't, like I said, there's things like I have been told from people, you shouldn't ask for money because you're a female, when I've gotten sponsors on, not just because I haven't made the elites, but I do all this other work leading up to that. Again, my merits don't come from competing at the elites or trophies. My merits come to bringing people to Christ and fishing. And that's why you have to have honest conversations with sponsors, and have your goals and missions align. And if there's companies out there that just want to see women competing in the elites, that's great. Then they want to support those people. But there's a lot of people out there that want to do. I'm just not a bass fisherman, a competitive bass fisherman. I'm an advocate for youth and fishing. Again, and my feeling is coming from my faith in God.
No, and that's absolutely 100% why I was so excited to meet you and so excited to have you on the show and to talk about this on, like I said, I have wanted to start this conversation for a while. And
Yeah.
when I first talked to you and I talked to, a couple of the other ladies, I think it can be talked about. I think it should be talked about. And
It's
if
not,
if I lose followers or friends or whatever, couldn't care less. It's
you
just
have
that.
no idea how many followers I've lost for
Yeah.
speaking up, like being called a feminist, or
Right.
talking about like equality. It's constant. That's the fragility in our
Right.
industry that I'm talking about.
It
Is
is.
that, and women included, they're like,
Mhm.
oh, they're just complaining, or it's just not the case. We have a different
Mhm.
view. Don't put our views down. That mindset of not truly trying to understand each other's perspective as women is why we have setbacks. And
Oh
that's
no,
why
absolutely, 100%.
we support each other. We can have difference in opinions without being disagreeable. And it's having real-time conversations, not on social media, hashing it out, and understanding each other and respecting each other. Just because this woman has a different view doesn't mean I think she's right or wrong. I can just simply say I don't agree.
Right.
Right? We
That's
need
well, I believe that's called America, right? We can all
right.
have different opinions and we should all get along just even though we have different
But
opinions.
don't put something down. Women put down the Women Making Waves campaign just because they don't understand or they don't agree.
Right.
Don't put down what you don't understand, or you're choosing not to. That's a
Right.
I'm not going to put your view down. I don't have to agree, but I don't have to publicly slander you or call it out.
Right.
That's the immaturity that I've seen in the bass
Right.
fishing from women,
Let's
and
say
that's
that.
again problems we create for ourselves as women. That's why I say women in the industry need to stop this scarcity complex that only one woman can succeed and that my view is right or superior. That's a huge setback. Women can be a huge setback, not just the men. So I do want to acknowledge that.
Well,
Again,
and
guys
taking that,
together.
yeah. Well, and taking that from what you say, it is, I don't want to say that I can understand or agree with what a woman would say on that sense, but I do understand just from a person who I'm out there, it's like, hey, I want a sponsor too, or I want this, or I want
Yes.
that. And it's like, it is tough no matter what, whether you're a man or a woman, to go out and get sponsors and to say, hey, I need to, if I want to get ahead in this sport, I have to
I'm,
be good at marketing. I have to be good at advertising. I have to be good at going out and speaking, right? That's the three things that really make you go forward in this sport, no
yeah.
matter what gender, race, or, or anything else you are.
You could be the best bass fisherman of all time.
Absolutely.
And I have bass fishermen locally here in Minnesota that are 5 times some of these elite anglers, but it's
Right.
because they don't have the resources,
Mhm.
or they don't have the money, or they don't have the personality. They really
Right.
don't do that. It is a business at the end of the day. We are running a business. Just
Right.
because you need the elites doesn't mean you can't make your posts. Just doesn't mean, I've had several companies, and this is a lot of the elites got to figure out this is not putting people down on the elites. This is just being aware that
Mhm.
some people are held to a different standard on the elites than they are. They're like, well, they're not posting on this and this, and that's why they
Right.
come to micro influencers to do that. But then these elites bitch that there's not money going to them. It's like, this is a business, and there is a will and want and a need for all of us on all levels, no matter where we are.
Oh, I've talked to some of the young guns on this show. I've talked to different guys and I've offered them all. It's like, when you're coming up in this sport, what are you looking at? Well, I'm in college right now and I'm learning marketing. I'm looking at advertising. I'm looking at and working with public speaking, because I think everybody kind of gets that that's just part of the sport. So when a woman comes in and to go off of what you had said, when you see a woman come in and she goes, I'm going to be driving forward and trying to do this for me and not looking out for everybody, I do understand a little bit of that, because this can be a cutthroat sport that way. That you get in with Seagar, or you get in with, one of these, Phoenix rods, or you name it. It doesn't mean that they're going to let every other person behind you in. It just means that you did something and you needed to push forward. Now, what the other side of that is, that if they did get in there, what they should do, in my opinion, is the same thing that anybody else should do: represent that company correctly, do it the right way, meet those expectations. The other side of that is that those companies need to hold them to a standard. Those companies need to hold them to and say, we brought you on to sell rods. You can't sell rods. I'm sorry, we can't keep you on our team. But I have seen way too many people get sponsorships, stay with sponsorships, couldn't sell me a freaking, you know, a down jacket in a winter storm. You know, it blows me out of the water. With
some people,
what
it's just your personality, right? You can be the best fisherman and make the elites have sponsors, but they drop you because you can't talk and you can't.
As well they should, in my opinion.
I want to say something that is delicate, and I want to be mindful of my elite friends, and I understand the frustration and how there could be resentment there that other women or people are getting sponsorship. I do think there's a thing with the industry that women can get sponsorship more easily than men. I absolutely want to honor that. Why I think this is that fishing companies are using anyone to fill their women quota, are using women as fashion accessories rather than actually, but I see a change. Like a lot of companies are not doing that anymore, but there has to be, and then women, there are women out there that are using fishing as a fashion accessories to do it. So I understand the frustration on the elites. I understand also confusion in these companies. So how do we figure that out? It's having courageous conversations.
It is. The other side of that is that you have to compartmentalize it. If your company, do not take a woman who has very little experience, very little knowledge of the sport, very little, I guess, experience in it,
give them a
and
sponsor,
then put them at the front of a boat, take pictures, and go, look at our tournament angler that we have.
That's filling a quota. That's using it as a fashion accessory.
Right. Take that same woman who has it. Maybe she has a passion for the sport. Maybe she does. Maybe she wants to eventually be there. But book her out as the person that's coming up. Don't make her out to be the next, Mike Iaconelli. If she's not,
I don't cater to that group. I know what I'm here for. I am so confident in my ability and what my conversations with God have been. I know that it's to retain new anglers, family, women. Like, I know that. Like, I'm not going to I do have a lot of tournament guys following me, but I have a lot of people that are just recreational fishermen that can relate to me. I'm a single mom. I take, my son doesn't like to fish right now because he's 14 and in high school, but can relate to like that. So I know where my wheelhouse is, and I work my ass off. I don't care what anyone says. I think I do the business side of fishing better than a lot of people, but I'm not saying I'm better than anybody.
Right. No, but you do it to the best of your ability, right? That's all we could really ask from anybody.
Right. And I know where my weaknesses are. If I really wanted in my heart to make the elites, I would do it. But that's not my goal right now. Like, it's just not God's will for me. So I focus on what is and what I can control. Again, I love to compete, so I'm always going to compete. And I want trophies. I got 2 trophies this year, so I want more trophies. It's addictive, right? But again, I'm grounded to know that my value is not in hardware.
No, and that's the whole point. Well, I don't know. You say that, but honestly, I've always said the exact opposite. It's like, hey, give me the plaque, and I'll take the money's the money. It comes and goes. Money's whatever. But that wall I got in front of me right here that's full of trophies. Those are all there. All the money that I won with them. Gone.
That's our ego.
That's the ego right there. Absolutely. I mean, I
made attainable goals when I was fishing as a boater in the BFLs. I wanted to make regional. That was my goal. I made it. Having small increment goals and cheering on women and championing for women in this way, and not saying, oh, it's just a BFL. I'll tell you right now, if you can fish a boat as a boater in the BFLs against these river rats that live on these things, you can compete with anybody. I don't care what it says. People like to downgrade it, men and women, that, oh, a lot of women just fish the BFLs. Good. That's where they should be. That's training grounds.
Sure. I mean, there's no reason why there's a reason the men go there. There's a reason why the young guys go there. There's a reason why all this happens. It's because they know as well as anybody else that that's where they need to be. You can't start at the top and work your way, work your way up. That does not, nobody fell to the top of a mountain.
but they're
you know.
local guys.
Right.
That are putting in the time and effort every day. If
Yeah.
you can beat those guys,
Right.
then you can beat anybody. Like, I mean, I honestly, truly believe that because a lot of these guys just are the best, the best. They don't choose to fish the elites because they don't want.
Well, and it comes down to the same thing. I've talked to Watson before, and it was, there's a lot of money in this, and not everybody. I'm sorry, there are so many people out there who can't afford to fish that level, and
And there's
until
people
you get
in the
this
elites that are broke and can't afford even to where they're at. It's
right.
because there's only, I will have to agree there's money, but I have to disagree with you. There's only 1% or 10% of the elite guys that truly, truly make it in fishing and have a good brand message, have all this. That's this much. So
Right.
we need to talk to these anglers in high school and in college with delicacy and setting them up for success, not failure, having business plans. And some companies, I'm going to call it out, take advantage of anglers. They get college kids, they get high school kids to do things for discounts because of ego. This sport plays off the ego so you can have a logo on a jersey.
How many young kids do you see running around with jerseys on? Jerseys used to be something. It used to mean, when you have a pack. Now anybody who walks in gives you 3 packs of worms and says, "Hey, come back when those are gone. I'll give you some more if you go out there and do stuff for us."
I have a huge problem with it. I think it's not fair. I think it's prying on our youth. I don't think it's healthy. Like, I don't think it's good advocacy for the sport. It's setting them up for failure rather than success. You need to get and partnerships that'll pay you from the beginning, or you won't. You have to also lay the groundwork to do that.
I think I don't have a problem with them giving them product. What I have a problem with is them not forcing them. No, I don't want to say forcing. Forcing is a bad word. Not making their standards and saying, "Look, I have no problem backing you, putting a shirt, putting you in a jersey, putting you with our product and giving you, 50 bags of worms every month or whatever it is." What I have a problem with is you just turning around and not doing anything for it. I need to hear you. I need you to show up, and I need you to, hey, I was at this event. I placed here. I placed there. I did this kind of a talk. I spoke with these people. This is what I did. That needs to happen, because I see that not happening all the time. They just pick somebody. Yeah.
Don't do anything. I agree. You need to have,
there needs to be structure.
Structure for sure. Right. And a lot of companies, mom and pop shops, don't do that right. Again, it is a whole mess. Our industry is a mess because of all those little moving parts, and it takes. It's the industry, it's men, it's women, it's everything. So we want true equity, fairness, equality, sameness. It's gonna take having conversations and being outside the box and accepting that. I'm very proud to be a part of the Women Making Waves campaign. We're not just about bass fishing. It's about being the open water to everybody. The stats are there. I told you about the stats. Women are 38% of the industry, but dropping out at alarming rates. It's because they're underrepresented or misrepresented. They're not in ads. They legitimately don't see themselves participating because there's not advocacy for women, authentic women.
Right.
And there's not education to cater to that. But I'll tell you what, there's a lot of companies I've met with ICAST that are starting to hear it. They want to hear it. They want to listen. They want an opinion. They're hiring equity specialists. They're hiring, to me, there was 2 people. I'm not going to say what companies. They had their HR people there. They had, equity people there. They're explaining what they're doing. That's the companies I want to work with because they're understanding it, And then there's other ones that just aren't, but that's okay.
Yeah. And they're, but when, especially if they're companies that are leaders and they start doing it and they start running a plan and they start moving that way, everybody else follows. I mean, it's just that's just the way the world works. Change comes. People don't like change, but change comes. And when it comes, as long as it's perceived to be positive, it's perceived to be, this is just the way the world's going.
Well, I love that there was strong female leadership, starting to see strong, authentic female leadership in these companies that are actual fishermen and stuff like that. So that's good to see. Not everyone has the same view, but having equal parts women, equal part, men, and making decisions with a company.
Right. I mean, it's starting. I definitely see it in our industry, whether it be hunting or fishing or whatever, any of the outdoors sports. I start to see, you could absolutely see more women coming in, more, less and less of the discrimination against it as far as the overall field.
Again, but there's still that percentage that's
But
dropping
there's
out. So we're not
right. We're not
so
retaining. We're not
we're
retaining it like you talk
because
about.
again, most of the industry, 80% is going towards avid anglers, whatever.
Right.
We need those new entry level anglers, and a lot of marketing plans you're going to start to see change because they're starting to catch up. Bass fishing, you told me before this conversation, there's an angler that always says bass fishing's way behind the times. It really has been. So it's just coming, and maybe this is too progressive for some people. We don't want to change. That's fine. That's your choice.
Right.
But if we really want to see women excel, if we want to see people of different color and whatnot, we have to make the sport more accessible. And talking about this, and again, our sport is privileged, so I don't know how we make it privileged. I don't know. I don't know that answer at all.
You know, I
Having equal votes,
I
like
understand. I understand. Right.
I mean,
well, I understand the words you're using, you know, with privilege, and I struggle with it a little bit. Not, you know, it's not, you're not saying white privilege. You did a couple, but I'm just saying it's right. It's privilege, and I don't want people. Well, I don't want people to take it that way. I want people to understand that you're saying it's a privileged sport.
I'm not saying white privilege.
Right. And anybody that is listening to this, understand that that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about privilege, or what she's talking about in privilege is, if I went out to buy a boat today, I mean, the minimum I'm going to spend is like $68,000. I'm sorry, but that's half a house.
That doesn't cater to me, like someone who's a mother.
It doesn't cater to
divorce. Like I can't afford that. Why don't I have a boat? It's because I can't afford it right now. Like,
well, exactly. But that is so much with everybody. And that, like I said, when I talked to James Watson and he kind of put these numbers out there, and I just went, that's unfathomable to think that he's got $70,000 wrapped up just in the sport itself before he pays his light bill at home. How can you say that that's not about privilege? That is, you're telling me that whatever you want to say.
It caters to anglers who have money,
right?
run companies, this and that. Again, if you look at statistics, we're talking about statistics.
Right.
I want to compare it to opportunity gaps in schools. There are opportunity gaps in schools, period. The people of color in that. It comes down to not white privilege. We're talking about just money in the sport. That's what it comes down to. And so I really feel we would see more people, women, more people of color, if there was more accessibility in terms of costs.
Right.
If we had a free tournament open, like where they had to apply, like we had a free tournament and you could fish out of any boat.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong, the kayak stuff that's coming out, it's so huge, and that's a reason why kayak is becoming so big. People can afford $2,000 to set up a good boat. They can't afford $70,000.
One of my friends, that's a kayak fisherman, Russ Snyder. He went from the boat world to the kayak world, and he's kicking butt in the kayak. He goes, it's just makes me a better angler. One, you dissect water differently. I have so much respect for the women competing in kayak too, because you can do that. Like, that's incredible, because one, you only have this amount of time to dissect. And it's different. I have 2 kayaks now. I work with Lightning kayaks, and it's been great. Like I'm an avid angler, but I'm not a professional kayak fisherman. But I tell you right now, I'm fishing without grass on ponds around here, and it's amazing. Like, it's fun. You actually take the time to dissect water differently.
Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about, is that you're seeing that this privilege of, being in these $110,000, these entry fees that are $7,000, $4,000. There's not a lot of people that can fish that. And I know that, and I'll tell you right now, there are
equal to all. It's not, though.
It's not. No, but when you talk about that, you can't say that that's women or that's men or that's people of color. When you talk about that much money,
Yeah, because I mean, if you want to get into I don't have the stats with me.
I can't quite go there yet.
Yeah, but we're not going to go there because
I I don't
But
think that you can bring that in and say, oh, well, this guy makes more than this person,
no.
That's
But
taking this too far.
if you have money, you can excel in the sport if you put in the time.
100%. I know plenty
But
of people.
if I'm like
right.
broke fisherman, single mom, I don't have the time or the money right now.
I know plenty of people. I know plenty of people.
I don't think I couldn't make it. I feel like I really
Right.
absolutely could. And having it in my head in a BFL and making regional made me say, I can do this, you know?
Sure.
It's,
well,
again,
but like I said,
individuality.
I know plenty of people that have money that fish tournaments and they just donate their money. That's all they're really out there to do, because they're not that good at anglers. They really have a lot of money. They come out, they compete,
and they're professional fishermen because they have money and they buy
right. They have the ability to buy a big boat. They have the ability to go out there, spend the gas money. They have the ability to travel, get the hotel rooms, go out there and fish. And do they cash checks? Hardly ever. But they enjoy what they're doing. Right. They enjoy what they're doing and they love going out there. So I take nothing away from them. I don't say, if you got money and you want to do it, do it. I don't have at it. I'm all there for it, because I'm willing to take your money too.
Again,
the whole thing is that, like we talked about with this, is that with the women coming into it, it is tougher in the sense that I think that, you know, I don't want to say it's tougher for them to do that, because it's tough for everybody to get that kind of money together to do these things.
I mean, if you look at income level, I mean, if we had to go that, there is something to do with that. Like, if you're
but the average young kid coming into this sport, you can draw a straight line. It doesn't matter, men, women, you know, whatever. If you've got your job is working in McDonald's, then that's, you all make the same amount of money. They don't discriminate. You know, you pay what you get paid. As you get up into the corporate levels, you can start talking a little bit more about that, and that becomes relevant. As you start to get up into the education levels, I mean, you're bettering yourself for a reason. You know, you want more for your lifestyle. You want more for what you can do. And everybody has that opportunity to do that in this country. I don't care where you come from. If you started off as the most dirt poor white kid, black kid, Asian kid, whatever, you have every opportunity in this country to go forward, but you still have to put the work in to get there. That's
right. But it doesn't, but with respects to equity, that doesn't mean our paths are the same.
Does not. 100%. You're correct.
A lot harder, and that's what I'm trying to raise awareness with women, because it's different. It's not the same path as you men. So me speaking up isn't being controversial, isn't trying to stir the pot. I'm literally just wanting awareness for this. Again, you and I haven't.
It's conversation.
It's having a conversation and respecting that. If you don't understand it, call me, DM me, whatever. I'm open. I want people to feel that they can talk to me. And I've had several anglers reach out to me and say, I don't get it, and still don't get it. But that's okay. Like, that's just how it is. But as we progress, I'm still going to have these conversations, because that's what God's weighed on my heart.
Right. And that's absolutely why you were here. It's absolutely why I had you come on, because I believe your opinions are valid. Like I said, I will find people that have opinions that are very different from yours. And that's my job as the press, is to give that other side of that story, to make sure that everybody gets both sides. I lean one way or the other. That's fine. That's my personal stuff. But on here, I want to give everybody the opportunity and say, hey, you know what? This is the conversation, and the conversation needs to be rounded. It needs to be full. It needs to be, there are other people who have had totally different experiences. And I'm hoping that I get some of them on here that can come in and talk about it and say, look, she said this, but you know what? This is how I've had it. And perfect. You know, let's round out the conversation here and make sure that everything is heard and everything is done, and that people, maybe it does open up some eyes. I'm hoping that that's what this does, is it opens up the eyes to people, that when they look at somebody like yourself, and they look at other people, other women coming up in the sport, they don't look at them and say, she's a sexual object and she can't fish because she's a woman, and she can't do this because she's that, or she's a feminist, or she's whatever it is.
We can just be,
they just look at them and say, there's another human being who is working her tail off to get ahead and wants to be in this sport. That's honestly the way I look at it. I look at it and I say, I'm glad she's out there, because I believe that one day someone's going to start making it, and they're going to make 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 it. And then there's going to be other women that come up and go, she made it, I can make it too. I can do this. I can do that. Tiger Woods did a hell of a lot for that sport. And he was one of the most watched human beings on the earth for a long time in any sport. And he broke through barriers that none of us will ever know.
Yep, you're absolutely right. I mean,
because of his talent, his work, and his drive. And I think there are women out there that can do that and will do that.
At the end of the day, hard work,
right.
any sport, anything you do
100%.
Yeah, but again, I gotta be mindful. This is success is different to everybody.
Of course.
I can evaluate my success. My values and success in the industry are bringing people to Christ
right.
and bringing people to fishing. That's how I value my success. Now, personally, I want to have trophies and be a better angler,
right.
and like get really frustrated if I don't compete or do my best. But it just depends on your personal objectives and vision in the industry.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Oh, it does. It does. Yeah. But I know you've got some time. You got to get out of here. We're running at the border. This may end up being 2 shows now. So we will.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you challenging perspectives and actually challenging me too, because this is how we come to an understanding and agreement. And we all have to think about this stuff. And I didn't think about this early on in my career. So I'm just trying to show the education I've had and from educational standpoint on equity and all that. So hopefully we can all just work together and not do the scarcity complex as women. My biggest message to women is you all have an individual goal. Don't put other women down because you don't understand their goals. We might not have the same goals. Just because you want to compete for the elites or be the best angler and win trophies doesn't mean someone else wants that in the industry. So be mindful of each other's goals, values, and opinions. So again, we don't have to agree, but we can be we don't have to be disagreeable.
Right. It's always easier, and I will tell you this right now, it is always easier to turn around and shake someone's hand than it is to stand in front of them and put them down for what they're accomplished.
Yeah, I mean, the catty, public slander is inappropriate. We see a lot more of that with women than we do men. I think that's just not appropriate.
I 100% agree on that, and
maybe that's wired, but I don't approve from a professional standpoint. That's not professional. Again, I have something to talk about. This is why I own my words when I'm on any live conversation. Come to me if you have questions. Let's have a real-time conversation. And this is how we move forward, having real-time conversations and not sitting behind a keyboard or not sitting behind social media and getting our words through.
They don't take all that wrong shit. I mean, here I'm behind the keyboard, so is she, and we're on social media. So, but Nicole, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate your opinions, and I'm very glad I got to meet you. And in moving forward, I hope we have many more conversations.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. I really hope you enjoyed this. If you didn't, sorry, but I'm doing the best I can out here to try to bring as much knowledge as I can out to you guys. This is a show, Bass Angler Magazine. We're always trying to make you a better angler, and I think that having the positiveness in your heart and being out there and supporting people rather than degrading them is always going to make you a better angler and make you a better person. So thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you later. Nicole, thanks again.
Yep.